What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here. And before we get into the PGA Tour video, I just want to ask a quick favor. You know I never do this, but if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, click the like button and subscribe. If you're listening on the podcast, subscribe there, leave me a 5-star review. If you're so inclined, write something nice. I would really appreciate it. As you can tell, I take these pretty seriously, but I want to take them more seriously. I want to continue to grow this. The more eyeballs we get, the more opportunities I can do to create other video series, more in-depth educational stuff, just pump out more content. So I really appreciate it. I never ask you to do it. I appreciate you. Let's get into the golf. All right, the WGC HSBC champions in China. This is the final leg of the swing that the tour has been on the last couple of weeks before they head back for the Shriners next week in Nevada. So we've kind of said similar things the last couple weeks. It's a smaller field. This week we've got 78 players. It is a no-cut event. But we do get a little bit more star-studded each week on this swing. So this week it's WGC. So we've got the top players in the field. It's that invitation only, but then we get some of the kind of the international players that we might not see very often down towards the bottom of this price pool. Par 72, we've got great course history. It's been played at, I believe it's pronounced Sheshan International, since 2008, except for 1 year in 2012 when it was played at Mission Hill. So we do have a little bit of course history. Let's jump into that real quick here. This is the cheat sheet. Everything you see available on dfsondemand.com. All right, let's start with, and real quick, this is going to be a quicker video. Remember that this tournament locks at something like 8 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. So want to get this video out as quick as possible so that we can make some lineups here. Don't miss lock. All right, so let's look at course history a little bit. And some of these guys are very, very clear. Rory McIlroy at 10,700 has played this tournament 5 times, finishing no worse than 11th in any of those starts, but no better than a 4th place finish. So he's racked up a bunch of 4ths, has not found himself hoisting the trophy on Sunday yet, but absolutely has destroyed here in the past, and obviously coming in with great form. 7th, 5th, 12th in his previous starts. He has not played since the Tour Championship, so this is going to be the first time he tees it up on the PGA Tour. Since then, we've got Dustin Johnson, who has won here, 2013. He's got 3 top 5s in his last 4 starts. Also playing well. A lot of these guys who made it to the Tour Championship, obviously playing well. Brooks Koepka, Justin Rose, those types of deals, right? It's no surprise. So we're really splitting hairs here. And when we are splitting hairs, I want to rely on my score a lot this year. So this is going to evolve a little bit. But remember, score for my purposes is essentially a combination of recent form and long-term form. 0 is about average. Anything in the negatives, obviously not good. And then once you get up into the range of 2, it's pretty elite. This week, Dustin Johnson leads the way in my score. It's a 2.15. The problem with that, though, while this is elite, these numbers very candidly rely pretty heavily on the strokes gained data. And we don't have strokes gained data for this swing when the PGA Tour goes to Asia. We just don't have the data. So I don't have, for example, course history information. Now, in Dustin Johnson's case, if I did, I assume it would only make him better because he's dominated here. Rory might get a boost as well. So my calculation has DJ number 1, 2.15, Justin Rose 1.8. Those two pretty clearly above the rest of the field. Then you get Rory at 1.46, Tony Finau 1.41, and Tommy Fleetwood 1.4. Those guys kind of interchangeable for me. And then there's a couple of values that pop out here right after those guys. Billy Horschel and Thorborn Olesen, 1.28 and 1.18, $8,000 and $7,900. I know that's a lot of numbers that I just threw at you, but the reason that those guys pop up and they score so well is because of their recent form, okay? So Billy Horschel played well down the end of last season, has not done so well at the first 2 legs of this swing, but he pops up because of that recent, that finishing stretch at the end of last year. What you're able to do, so if you're like, Rick, well, I don't really care about that. I want more long-term form. what you're able to do is you are able to adjust these. So let's actually go, pretty heavily on the long-term form. I want these to add up to be 100. So we'll go 90 on long-term form, and we'll go 10 on the short-term form. And again, when we get course history, you'll be able to change the strokes gained data. And you'll see that updates our custom model here. And our custom model here, there's a couple of outliers. Like Jason Day gets a boost in the custom model because of his long-term form. Even DJ gets better. Justin Rose gets better. Who gets worse in long-term form? Hideki gets a little bit worse. It's pretty similar to my weighting model. And if we flip this, if we just go short-term form, put a big heavy emphasis on short-term form. Whoops, sorry. If you're following me on the screen, I am a terrible clicker. Thomas Peters is actually coming off at a 2.27. He is our #1 player. My guess on why that is probably a bit of a smaller sample size. He doesn't play a lot of events with strokes gained data, and when he does, he plays well. For example, 6th place at the PGA Championship. So I'm assuming that's what that is. That's pushing him to the top there. But you get, who else is interesting? Like Terrell Hatton is probably a top 15 play here. CT Pan, Julian Surrey, they pop off as kind of top 15 plays. So you can mess around with that model a little bit. I'll go back to my score here. All right, personally, you know what? Actually, I'll sort by salary. I think that's a better idea. All right, personally, who do I like? I'm pretty interested in Hideki Matsuyama. I don't know how under the radar he is at the moment, but he's played really, really well. If you go back to the Wyndham, 11th at the Wyndham, 15th at the Northern Trust, 4th at the Dell Technologies, 15th at the BMW, 4th at the Tour Championship, and he played last week at the CJ Cup and finished 18th. He's been volatile here in the past, but he's been a winner. He won in 2016. He's coming back from that wrist injury, and he's played really, really well. I think he could go a bit under owned, but again, not really great at the ownership models. Otherwise, I do think Paul Casey's interesting. So Paul Casey's the only guy in the field who has top 20s in each of the first 2 legs of this swing. And he has pretty good course history, right? No worse than a 23rd in each of the last 4 times he's teed it up. 4th place back in 2011, playing well, and he's got good course vibes. I could get on board with that. I already mentioned Terrell Hatton. I like him as well. So those are kind of like my personal plays. If you go down to 8,600, you get Ian Poulter, who is going to jump off the screen if you're looking at course history models, or I guess I should say tournament history models. But he won the only year that this event was not played at this course. It was played at Mission Hills. So he won in 2012, which would skew some of your data. But at Session International, a 2nd place and a 6th place in 2013 and 2014. So it's not like he's terrible here. It's just that his win skews the data. It was at a different course. All right, who else? Cam Smith, playing well. He's kind of popular around the industry. Billy Horschel, outside of the last 2 weeks, had been really coming on down the stretch of last year. Anyone else? Griot had that 2nd at the CIMB, but did not follow it up very well at the CJ Cup last week. I'd be willing to buy back in on him. So there's an interesting, I'm going to flip to a different little tool here, because these are very difficult greens to get up and down on. There was a stat, oh man, who wrote it? I want to give credit. I think it was Rob Bolton, my buddy from PGA Tour. I think he either tweeted it out or it was somewhere. 3rd most difficult course to get up and down last year. So I'm going for guys who are going to hit the green. So I'm looking for strokes gained approach players. If I go to the strokes gained tool, I'll go back up to that one in a second, but I'll go down to strokes gained approach here, and you can put in any kind of range you want. So if you want to look at the last 25 weeks, which is a pretty long period to look at, that goes back to May 2nd exactly. And the guys that are in this field, some of these might make a lot of sense as far as ball strikers go. Francesco Molinari leads the way. 1.16 strokes gained per round. Dustin Johnson's at just a hair under 1 stroke. Keegan, Julian Surrey, and Adam Scott round out the top 5. Hideki Matsuyama is 8th on this list. Terrell Hatton, 10th on this list. So the guys that I think are playing well, who have good course history and have the stats or the skill set that you would find, continue to pop up here. All right, if we want to look at a more recent time frame, let's go to like last 10 weeks. All right, this would really just be down the stretch. You get Hideki leading the way, Billy Horschel, Dustin Johnson again, Francesco Molinari again, Rory, Keegan again, and then you get a couple other guys like Kyle Stanley, Patrick Cantlay, Xander Schauffele, Brooks Koepka rounding out the top 10. So you can kind of play around with this. If you want to look at a little longer term, you're probably going to get back to, you're going to get back to Keegan, you're going to get back to DJ, Molinari, Adam Scott, etc. Okay, so that is an important stat for me this week. It's strokes gained approach, and let's see who's hot and who's not. Now, again, these numbers are going to be a lot better when we have strokes gained numbers every single week. We don't have the luxury of having strokes gained numbers from the last 2 weeks, so this is a bit outdated, I would say. So take it with a grain of salt. But Thomas Pieters, in theory, the hottest player in the field, playing above his baseline strokes gained average. Again, smaller sample size. Billy Horschel's on here. Julian Surrey, again, I guess I'm going to have to play him because he pops up on every single thing that we look at. Guys on the opposite side of this, and some of these have improved their position. We had Paul Casey being a cold player. We had Griot being a cold player. Those guys would probably benefit from the last 2 weeks of having strokes gained data. So take that for what it's worth. Make sure that you realize what you're looking at here. But I think there's some really good information. All right. Let's go back to the cheat sheet and just kind of round this out really, really quickly. So if we're going to the top, we're splitting hairs between all the best players in the world. I prefer to take someone like, because really if you look at this, and this is kind of my input now, it's not really the, the idea of a data-based analysis. This is kind of my input a little bit. The guys over 10,000 are pretty similar, right? I mean, any one of these guys, Dustin Johnson, Justin Rose, Brooks Koepka, Rory, Jason Day, and Hideki, could very easily win this golf tournament. I like Hideki for the discount off of some of these guys at the top. I think he will be lower owned in GPPs. If I was going to go for cash game plays, I might look to someone like Rory, who has just been absolutely dominant here. Playing well down the stretch. He fits the mold. Those two guys will probably be in the vast majority of my lineups. Jason Day as well, just because he's a discount. It's nothing against DJ. It's nothing against Justin Rose. It's nothing against Brooks Koepka. Obviously, I think they're all great. I just I think there's other great players, really. So that's kind of my idea. Then when we get down to the next level, I like Paul Casey and Terrell Hatton. I think they really fit the mold and they're playing well. A little bit further down, you get someone like Ian Poulter. Adam Scott actually showed up a little bit for me. Cam Smith. Then Billy Horschel at $8,000 seems like a pretty good discount. A couple weeks ago he was probably a lot more expensive, but 2 bad weeks at the start of this trip, and his salary's down to $8,000. Thorborn Olesen, $7,900 as well. So there's plenty of options. If you really want to go deep here, let's look at this range. If you really want to go deep, Keegan popped off at $7,500 in a lot of our stats. Griot's the same price. Pat Perez and Ches Reavie, who both, had pretty bad years last year, have started to turn it around. Both had 7th place finishes last week, if you want to try to ride the hot hand. Who else here? Julian Surrey, his stats popped up again. He's probably a little bit of one of these guys where a small sample size makes him look better than he might actually be. But he did pop up quite a bit, so if you want to consider him. And then I'm probably not going anywhere down past, I don't know, Kiradad, Effie Barnrat. Just not really a place where I want to start investing in some of these guys that you get in WGCs that are, $6,400 and don't really have any chance to compete here. And there's quite a few of them, right? I mean, from $6,000 to 60, even 68, there's probably 25, 30 guys there. That's like a third of the field that I don't really think can compete in this event. Maybe Eric Van Rooyen, who is a Euro guy who I think could actually compete here. But some of these guys I don't think actually have a chance. But let me know what you think. I'm excited to get back to the PGA Tour. I'm excited to get back to the strokes gain data. I have a lot of cool stuff to show you, but I've just kind of been sitting on it because I don't have a way to show it to you yet until we get some more information. So looking forward to that. Let me know what you're going to do this week. Who's your winner? Also, again, do me a favor, subscribe in places that you can subscribe. It really helps me out. We'll create a lot more of these videos. We'll create a lot of cool stuff this year. I'm looking forward to it. Tweet me. It's at DFS On Demand. Leave me a comment below. I'll talk to you guys soon. Later.